What is good? Look at the shirts. That's awesome. Okay. A lot of fired up people in here tonight.
I don't even want to do this episode. I'll be honest. I'm kidding.
Your background with our background seems a little weird, no?
Well, so I didn't want to put the horny for disrespect thing on there because the shirt gets like washed out. Been waiting for this since Monday night.
Appreciate it, Jeremy.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate that.
Newest dog fan?
Like everyone's already talked about the game. Do we need to still talk about it?
I mean, the game itself probably doesn't need to be broken down. Wasn't exactly an exhilarating game, per se.
I'll tell you what we are going to do. Because I'm just like, I'm not in a mood. But I'm also trying to do this thing in 2023, which is where if anyone's wronged me in the past.
Oh, God.
Publicly. That is a peer of ours that works in this industry.
Oh, no.
I will go to, I will exhaust not all efforts, but I'll exhaust some efforts. I feel like, what's the best way to put it? Make them look stupid. And so what I got to do here now is I have to read you this because I almost sent you the email or I almost sent you the article.
What are we doing right now?
Matt Hayes wrote his pre like national title like primer, like his like before the game was played. Here's the preview. Tyler, almost every fucking word that was written was wrong, like comically bad. And I just couldn't stop laughing because like the way the game played out now, and we're always wrong about stuff too. Or sometimes wrong about stuff too. But I have to read it to you because it's incredible. But anyway, we'll get to it in a minute. There's a lot of people in here that are very excited to celebrate.
As there should be. So let's get started. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. The College Football Uncensored Podcast, brought to you by Saturday Down South and Texas Pete. Downset sauce like you mean it, Chris. I'm your host, Chris. I don't like this lighting. Burgundy? No. I'm your host, Tyler Huck, and with me as always, Chris Marler. Chris, back on the left, or you were on the left coast.
Yeah.
Now you're on the best coast?
The Beast Coast. Dude, I tell you what, California.
How was the trip, man?
It was fine. I didn't like California because everyone there was trying to get me to do heroin and buy into socialism. That's like the whole state. That's all they do. I'm playing. That's not real. The weather sucked in LA.
I was shocked to see it. It like never rains there.
It rained the whole time. It rained like the whole time. And then I only had one long sleeve shirt that I brought with me, which was an Alabama shirt, so that was cool. So I had to wear that into the stadium.
I mean,
yeah, it was cool though. It was a really fun trip.
Did you see a bunch of your besties out there? You said you met some listeners.
Met a ton of listeners. Got recognized a whole bunch. Why do I look orange and you look like a normal person?
I don't know. What's going on?
It's got to be.
You have something to say? Huh? Did you get a spray tan when you were out there?
Yeah, I went to Palm Beach tan. But like actually Palm Beach, bro, you wouldn't get it. So I will say, well, just a quick recap of the trip. Flew into Ontario, which I'm not sure if you're familiar. That is a real place in not Canada. It's also in California. Highlights of the trip. Got to see the Rose Bowl for the first time. Got to see the Coliseum. The Rose Bowl, by the way, it's literally, it is just in a fucking neighborhood. It's like you're coming around the bend and there's like joggers and walkers and the fucking Rose Bowl.
That's so strange.
It's awesome.
We gotta figure out the background as to kind of how it all started because that's very strange. Anyways, it's like definitely on my bucket list. I mean, I can't tell you how bad I screwed up not going to the 2013 national championship. Florida State in the Rose Bowl, winning a national championship. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Like that's just
2009 Bama.
Ugh.
I told you before, man. I remember taking out a student loan I was like working a bunch of shifts. I'm pretty sure my grandma gave me a bunch of Christmas money. And I was like, I'm going to the fucking Rose Bowl, Bama national title game. But it was the first time they'd been in it since like 92. So like people were still like going out there. And every single night I would come home from the bar, like after working, and I'd be drunk, and there'd just be 26 tabs open of like Orbitz, Expedia, Travelocity, and just never pulled the trigger. Ben Diesel says, love you guys. I apologize for being such an abrasive asshole of a troll, but it's just kind of my nature. Ben, it's the last episode of the season, and I really appreciate you saying that because every word you said is true, but we love you too. Was Winky the QB when Tyler got that hat? That's a good looking hat, dude.
Yeah, it's a little 90s hat.
Screw you, Jeff Williams. I don't mean that. Okay. Anyway, so got to see the Rose Bowl, got to see the Coliseum. Coliseum was cool because it's like, it was like the Olympics were there twice.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much history. And then saw the Forum, which maybe where Magic Johnson caught the high five. And then SoFi, dude. SoFi is a spaceship. It was incredible. Anybody that went to the game, I want to hear your thoughts on SoFi as well, because I'm like a huge homer about MBS here in Atlanta. It puts Mercedes-Benz to shame, dude. It is incredible.
Yeah, but wasn't the ceiling leaking?
So yeah, people were still. Everyone was soaking wet.
But is it open? Like open air? Like why was everyone wet?
Kind of, but like not. Like there was twice that I like when I walked to the Coliseum. Like you walk under that giant arch, like the arch is covered, and as soon as I was like walking up towards it, I was like, why is there still just like steady raindrops? Like there was. I don't know if it's a California thing, if it rains through buildings. I don't know.
Some of that liberal magic out there.
You know how they are. You know how they are, dude. I'll tell you what. But yeah, everyone was wet. It was like going to a damn Magic Mike show. You know what I mean? Everyone,
yeah, brother. Hell
not
right.
a dry seat in the house.
If it seems like we're just like prattling on about your trip more than the game, well, that was a 65-7 absolute beat down. I want to say it was the biggest blowout of any bowl ever. And it happened to come in a national championship game. I've got a lot of thoughts. I have no interest in diminishing anything that Georgia did because, look, TCU obviously a little bit outmatched in a game against an SEC opponent, for sure, especially one of Georgia's caliber. I think the 12-team playoff will eventually eliminate such a thing happening in a national championship again.
Why?
Because there's more time. You know, you can line up against like a Michigan and win one game. Throw the kitchen sink. Yeah. You're a talented team. There's some really good top-end players for TCU, but they clearly don't have depth.
Right.
That kind of team is going to get knocked out in the playoffs before they can make a real chance to get it to the national championship. They got to win three games, something like that, in the new format. Yeah. So I think that is one better thing about expansion is if a team that may have benefited from a lot of close wins in a conference that wasn't as strong kind of finds their way into the game. As a college football fan, you don't want to watch a 65-7 game.
It was the worst ratings ever. Yep. I had so many feelings on this because I was so blown away by Georgia in general.
I mean, they played their best game of the season.
I don't know if they did. Probably, I guess, but like they, I've said it all year. If they want to, or when they want to, if they want to prove a point, if they want to, because I'm a big believer that Kirby is playing things close to the vest, and everything's about the long game. Now we're not going to show this, we're not going to show that, and he can afford that because his team is better than everyone in the country. He's out-recruited every other coach in the country, and he knows what he has. And he knows I think at this point, especially with Kirby, he's in year 7 as being a head coach. He's finally comfortable with he knows what he's got when he has it. and what he can get away with, what it takes to get to the Natty, because like this team is not ever this program is not going to ever lose to South Carolina, 4-8 South Carolina, unranked at home ever again. That's not going to ever happen again.
Well,
it absolutely will not happen.
Ever is strong.
Bama beat Tennessee for 15 straight years.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now, Georgia's not going to lose. Years. South Carolina is a lesser program. That'll never happen again. Like Georgia, he knows that he can get away with like, you know what, I can play a 10-point game against Kentucky and like learn what it's like to be in like a close game and like have that suit us or have that prepare us for stuff later on in the season and like use that to our advantage and what like we don't have to show anything. And then once it's all finally like at the end of the year and it's time to fucking just it was like the show and tell. It's like he could not have been more casual about like, you know what, these are all of the pieces of like luxury that I have in this fucking unbelievable dynasty that I'm currently building. Here's my tight end. Here's Lad McConkey. Here's a freshman running back that's going to fucking gash you for the fourth quarter while our defense still holds you to negative yardage on 5 of the first 6 plays of that quarter. It was incredible, man. Bama's never done that. USC didn't do that. Nebraska has never done that. It is unlike anything I've ever seen in college football.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just insane. I think when you start with Stetson, I mean, imagine how far it's come. I mean, it was a joke when Stetson was first named the QB. Remember that when we were like Stetson Bennett?
Wait, this year?
No, like when he first started. Like think about where he's come from to now with the whole Quavius, like just most cocksure dude out there. I mean, confident as all hell, makes all the nice plays. And I mean, look, dude, if a guy like Taylor Heineke can get snaps for the Commanders, I don't see why Stetson can't go in and at least be a player like that in the NFL. I don't think he has no chance at the NFL. Do you?
I have zero opinion on his NFL future. I think it's an awesome story. I've said it 1,000 times. I will still be petty and say I'm so happy for that the Georgia fan base finally fucking came around and started supporting that kid. Because all of a sudden, Tyler, he's not only led you to back-to-back natties, he's the greatest quarterback and maybe player that you've had in the history of your program.
I mean, he's definitely the most decorated. What, he won an MVP in every playoff game that he played in? Is that right?
Every single one. And I'm not saying he didn't deserve that. Part of that is listen, this is not about Stetson, but I will just say this, and I don't care how this sounds. America loves an underdog white quarterback more than maybe anything in the world. Like, if you got
gotta be small, gotta be small,
or Tebow. A lot of people like him.
So he wasn't really an underdog. I mean, he was like the number 1 player coming out.
You know, he was like number 19, or whatever. But with Stetson, it's like I don't understand. I really don't understand how we've like shifted to this part now where the people that don't like him, they sound fucking irrational as shit. But like trying to drum up anything to say like negative about this kid, like I don't like him. My buddy Robbie Buffington, he's a punk. He blames everyone else for when he messes up, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen this happen. Not once I've ever seen Stetson Bennett do that. Yeah. Or if you're in the camp of like, well, he's 25, of course it's easy. Well, I don't know why that matters. Like, I just don't.
And by the way, was TCU's punter? I think they said, and people in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. I think TCU's punter was 29.
Yeah,
and he's coming back next year for. I'm pretty sure I was like, this dude is going to be 30 next year punting for TCU.
Good for him.
Yeah, that guy's living the life. That's like North Texas. North Texas QB is 29. Yeah, William Gray in the chat, 29. Yep.
Okay, so somebody says in the modern era, Stet is the GOAT, but he's number 2 to Herschel. So here's the thing about Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker went to 2 national championship games.
Yep.
And he did not win 2 national championships.
It's true.
So,
and let's be honest. I mean, the QB is going to get all the glory and all the blame, and that dude had a lot of pressure on his back, especially last year.
He was the scapegoat for the entire fan base for 2 straight years. It's why they lost to Bama in 2020. It's why they lost to Florida in 2020. He can't see over the line. He's too short. As long as we have until we get like an elite quarterback, we're not going to be able to win a national championship. We're not going to beat Bama. And like the SEC championship, man, in like 2021 is still so mind blowing that how that even happened. But that's the last time we ever saw that Stetson. He's never done that since.
And let's be honest. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like as I get older, it gets harder and harder to do athletic things.
Yeah, the whole 25.
So if you're 25, 28, like Chris Winkie, and you got a 19-year-old dude that's 6'3", 250 running full speed at you,
right?
I mean, you get hit by that guy. When I was 29, I would have been out for 4 months.
Yeah,
from one
my
hit.
Uber Eats is actually calling me right now, so I don't know how to do that. I gotta pick this up, guys.
All right, we'll meet you, Mike, at least. There he is. All right. So while Chris gets his food and undoubtedly eats it while we are all listening to him eat it. Yeah, I just couldn't be happier for the Georgia fan base and Stetson. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he takes the next point of his career. Does he get another year? Is he coming back next year? No, but for real, and I'm just excited to see, what Carson Beck or one of these other guys can do next year too. I mean, kind of talked about the 2023 season. I was kind of railing on Georgia a little bit, and I know it's not their fault. You play the schedule you have. But man, like that 2023 schedule is, for how young Georgia was this year, in those CFP games, man, there were a lot of true freshmen on the field, especially on defense. And you still return a lot of these players, including Brock Bowers, who's like the best player in the country at any position. And you're out of conference is what, like, and I know it was supposed to be Oklahoma, so you can save your comments in the chat. But that out of conference is like Ball State, UT Martin, Georgia Tech.
There's two things that I want Georgia fans to listen up. This is the one critique I'm going to give you, maybe, or 2 critiques I'm going to give you. Every single one of you, and there's a lot of people in the chat that were included in this. When I used to get shit on all the time, he's a Bama homer. He talks about Bama all the time. All they ever talk about is Bama. Bama was the best program in the country. They were constantly playing for national championships, and they were constantly getting all the attention. So all I'm saying is make sure you keep that same fucking energy now when all we talk about is Georgia. Because I noticed that we're not getting any of those complaints anymore. So you're fucking welcome. You see how that works? You see how that works when you're this relevant? That's how that works. Also, the other thing, I don't ever want to hear anything about so-and-so didn't play anybody, because Georgia is the best program in the country, the best team in the country, but this is a cakewalk to get to, I'm not saying to get to a 3rd straight natty, because that's not easy, but to get to the playoff, their schedule's even easier this year.
Well, they're out of conference. I just listed. They have 4 true road games, 2 of which are Vandy and Georgia Tech.
That's unfucking real.
Who
do they get out of the West? I think they get like Ole Miss or something, but it's at home.
It is Ole Miss.
It's at home, right?
Mm-hmm. Tennessee on the road. It's the last game before Georgia Tech. I say just rest all your starters all year until you play Tennessee, and then get everyone with fresh legs in the Tennessee game on the road. And it'll be interesting to see without Hendon Hooker. Milton obviously looked good in the bowl game.
Would you read this, please?
I don't know. I don't know if a full season of Milton
at Auburn could be tough. You guys have beaten them 13 out of the last 16 games. Just listen, lean into it. Don't like pretend that it's going to be.
And it's very rare that the first year in this new era where the signing day is in December, it's rare for a first-year head coach to come in and make a huge difference. I mean, obviously Lincoln Riley did that, but you usually have a lot of turnover, guys hitting the portal. You can't get a recruiting class in. So Auburn, I think, will still probably be pretty bad this year.
Yeah, their roster is awful. Also, I don't know why we just assume Tennessee's going to be like they're here now.
No, you can't say it yet. It's been 1 year. You lose a lot off that offense.
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker obviously was a Heisman favorite for a bit there until he got injured. Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman. A lot of these guys are out. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but I think it's reasonable to expect them to take a step back unless you think the true freshman is going to come in and light it up from day one, which hard to see in the SEC.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how many guys hit the portal for Georgia. In this new era, like a 5-star D lineman that's got now this freakazoid Michael Williams in front of him.
That kid,
he's like, dude, okay, well, I'm probably not going to play here over this kid, so I could probably go get an NIL deal somewhere else. I've got my ring.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see the turnover, and that's what's so different about today's game is, yeah, everyone's saying, yeah, of course, Georgia is going to be the odds-on favorite, and they will be because look at the way they recruit, but you don't know what their roster is going to look like next year at all, really.
No, and or Tennessee's.
Yep.
I'll be honest, we'll get to it later, but the whole thing about Bama just being like a shoe-in to be like most places had them top 2 or 3 for next year, and I get that they've earned that, like, you know, benefit of the doubt. They return the least amount of starters out of any team in the way too early top 25 rankings. They only return 10.
Yeah,
the people they lose, I don't know why we just all automatically think like, oh yeah, they're gonna fix all those problems now that Bryce Young and Will Anderson are both gone. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Look, I know that the other thing that's going to change too is there's going to be a whole other portal season after the spring games where coaches are sifting through. Florida State, 3 of their starting offensive linemen this year were signed out of the portal after spring ball.
Right.
So, I mean, those were 3 guys we didn't even play in the spring game with. That it just totally changes the roster. So there's going to be a lot of turnover. For instance, at Georgia, let's say Carson Beck wins the job. I mean, you think Brock Vandegrift's going to sit there and wait his turn with Gunnar Stockton on his heels? I mean, one of those guys will transfer if they don't get the job because they're kind of waiting for Stetson to be out. So it's going to be pretty crazy. But you had some numbers on Stetson in the CFP versus like all-time QBs that you wanted to put out there.
No, so I didn't actually. That was in the other podcast. Let's like talk a little bit about the game.
Okay.
Just like a little bit. Like we'll breeze through it, obviously. But what I thought was funny was we kept talking about how I don't know what TCU does that is going to like better than Georgia. Like what could they possibly do that is going to be better than Georgia, or Georgia can't stop? And the only advantage I could find statistically they had was the turnover margin. And they were like -9 all years, top 20 in the country, and Georgia was like +1. Of course, Georgia gets 3 turnovers, 2 from the kid from Milledgeville. Love it. It seemed like from jump, I thought that Georgia was the better team. I didn't think they would start this or like start so fast because they haven't a lot of times, especially in bigger games. We haven't seen that as much. We saw it against Tennessee, but like even against Oregon, they won 49-3, and it was like 3-0 in the first quarter. I think the one thing I bet on was the first quarter under 14. It was 24, and then I bet on Georgia to cover 7 in the first half. I told you this the other day. The one prop that I wanted to see was like when they had like the team total, like, and they had like the brackets. So it was like if they have to score between 31 to 40, whatever.
Yeah, they
didn't have one listed for 0 to 10. And I wanted that so bad. And the only alternate line I could find
TCU?
was, yeah, they didn't have it listed. They had if they scored 11 to 20, it was +270.
So yeah, that would have been easily like +400 probably.
Right. Probably more than that. And then the only alternate line I could find was -17.5. And it was like, that's not where I'm thinking this is going to go. So Georgia comes out and just goes right down their fucking throat. I mean, honestly, man, think about this. TCU put up 188 yards of offense. you're talking about one broken play, like one deep ball. And it's
and that was
65
just
nothing.
that was like on Georgia, like they just got caught in a mix-up. Like that was it.
That was it.
Dude,
TCU,
like I feel, I mean, look, I was kind of bitching about it on Twitter, and then I was in a group chat with a bunch of Georgia guys, and it's like midway through the second quarter, and I'm like, this has got to be the worst championship game I've ever watched. And they're like, oh, you're just hating on it. If Florida State was in it, you would think it was awesome. I was like, yeah, and you'd probably think it's terrible.
this is
I
what
was like,
Florida State was here to like Wake in the 90s.
Yeah, like this team is going to be up by 30 at the half.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I mean, I'll be totally honest. I've never done this before. I went to sleep before the game ended.
I've done it before.
It was a blowout. I mean, it was, and Georgia I think Georgia played its best game of the year. And maybe, maybe the Oregon game was a little bit better.
No.
Because
again, they got off to a slow start. It's 3-0.
Yeah.
This was.
I also think TCU. Some of this was obviously Georgia. TCU played an awful game. I mean, they didn't show any composure from minute one.
Because because this isn't Michigan.
Right.
And it's not fucking Texas, and it's not fucking Kansas State, and it's not fucking like it's Georgia. And I tell you what, too, the thing with TCU, like one of the things they did really well all year was like long plays, like chunk plays over 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. They were top 3 in the country in what do you call it? Offensive plays over 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 yards. They were number 1, I think, in 40, 50, and 60. They had 2 plays the entire game that were over 10 yards. 2. Why would you watch the replay of TCU? See, this is the whole.
Sadness.
Sadness. They are another level of petty, by the way. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
Brandon says they were starstruck on the field.
They might have been. They honestly might have been.
They were.
But again, so Georgia goes in there. They dominate. I think they had 1 punt, and it was the first possession of the second half. I mean, just any way you looked at it, it was like, okay. So like the one thing I brought up about like I didn't want to put this as a prop bet, but Max Duggan against ranked teams, he had 15 rush attempts in 3 of his last 4 against ranked opponents, and then he had 10 in the other ones. So it's like 55 rushes in 4 games. So that seemed like it was going to be a part of it, like their game plan. He had negative 38 yards at the end of the game. Like, I don't think they had a single player go over their prop total. Like, and I'm not making that up.
And like, obviously, there's a lot of Georgia fans that are also Falcons fans, and I'm a Falcons fan. And at the half, I was like, I remember how I felt at the Super Bowl. And there was just always something in the back of my mind. I'm like, this is obviously Tom Brady. And granted, Max Duggan isn't Tom Brady, which is part of why I was like, this felt nothing like that. I was like, there's absolutely zero chance that TCU is going to win this game. Like,
at all.
I think the odds had to have been 0. Just the absolute. It's every time the SEC plays someone in the Big 12, you see the difference in the trenches. It's enormous. I mean, Max Duggan had no time to throw. Stetson had all day to throw. All day.
He didn't get touched.
My man was just patting the ball back there. I mean, it was just, I mein, God, it was a beatdown.
It was awesome. It was awesome to watch. And I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. I went back and looked at this stuff too. And we can get into this part because I think I'm all about like giving Georgia like their props. Because I think one of the interesting parts about this is the misperception, I think, still about how good this team is or how dominant this team is because of what last year's team did, or like because like whatever stigma people like this, like, you know, confirmation bias or like preseason like idea they've had of like, well, Georgia's a defensive team and Stetson Bennett's not a great quarterback and he's a game manager. Like I saw today, Michael Calabrese said he commented on something on Twitter is like they weren't even as dominant as the team a year ago. I don't know how to tell you guys this. Statistically, not even fucking close. It's not even fucking close. They are way more dominant this year. And when you look at like what they did against ranked opponents, I mean, and I have all this shit in front of me. We talked about it on the last pod.
The offense is significantly better.
What's that? Yeah.
The offense is significantly better.
Which is what I said going into the season. I was like, I think they have a chance to be better or more, or at least more dominant than they were a year ago because of the fact that the offense has so many weapons. I don't see who's going to be able to stop them. And so you look at like from a year ago, they had their average margin of victory against ranked opponents was 16.1. You know what it was this year against ranked opponents? 29.4.
Yo.
29.4. They played 7 ranked teams. They put up at least 40 points in 6 of those 7 games.
And I would say the schedule they played this year was better.
Yeah.
Harder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, like again, you're looking at like last year, you beat Michigan by 23, beat Bama by 15, lose Bama by 17. You beat Kentucky by 17, Arkansas by 37, Auburn by 24, and Clemson by 7. I don't know how Auburn was ranked, but that's the thing. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing there that really jumped out at you besides like 37-0, right? And then we didn't see that again for the rest of the year. This year, 48-3, 48-7, 45-19, 50-30, 65-7. And so what I was interested to see was, I'm not saying that this Georgia team is better than 2019 LSU or 2020 Bama. If you line them up on a field today, I'd be honest, I'd like 2020 Bama over Georgia, and I probably like 2019 LSU. I have a hard time with the LSU thing strictly because I know what Burrow did. I know what that offense did. They gave up 400 yards rushing to Ole Miss, and I just can't shake that even now.
Part of me also like looks at some of those guys on that team that are now like the best players in the NFL as well, and just kind of gives you that like, well, Joe Burrow is like a top 5 QB in the NFL at this point. He was the dude that year as well, like definitely taking him over Stetson. The receivers were Jamar Chase and then Justin Jefferson, who are like the 2 best receivers in the NFL.
Right.
And look, like Georgia has some guys, but like I don't feel like they have those guys.
No, I wouldn't.
Bowers. They got Bowers is going to be a top 10 pick as a tight end
for sure. Maybe top 5. And I didn't realize that people really don't consider 2020 Bama as like a real, like, because of COVID. Here's the thing. If anyone is saying that, I'll just be honest with you. You're a fucking idiot. Like, if you think that COVID is the reason that team like was good, I don't know. Like, that's a ridiculous statement. They had 7 first rounders, a Heisman Trophy winner. They had 3 of the top 5 Heisman finalists, and they put up their average margin of victory against 5 ranked opponents in 13 games was 19. That's still 10 points less per game than Georgia was, and LSU's was only 15. You look at Clemson's was, I believe it was 24 or it might have been 27, but they only played 3 ranked opponents in 2018. It's like any way you look at it. Like, I mean, I looked at Nebraska 94-95. They went 25-0, and what's funny too is they also had a top 10 offense, top 10 defense, just like Georgia. They scored 35 points a game, and it was ranked like 8th in the country or something like that. But even those teams did not like dominate consistently with this wide of margins. And the thing is, what's crazy is that Tennessee game, they left so much meat on the bone. They could have made that so much worse.
Yeah,
our offense will be better. Okay. It's like you give them an inch, and they just.
I'll be honest. They have every right to be like walking around with their chests out right now.
Without a doubt. I will say that I think that there's some of the stuff that I've seen like in the Facebook group, and we're going to address it. Some of the dumbest, like where their minds have gone to, and maybe it's because it was so bored in the second half and there was nothing else to think about. But like some of the takes have been like the whole.
Like,
there's a
how hot?
I mean,
like nuclear.
The one in the Facebook group that like. I just assumed it would be like one person, maybe 2, 3. I don't know. Every single Georgia comment under the post. Do you think that Kirby Smart was the only reason for Nick Saban's success while he was at Alabama? Because now that he left, you can see that program has declined, and Georgia's obviously doing what they're doing. Now, keep in mind, we're 7 years into this, and so the argument is incredible. And I tell you what, Ben Diesel, he's probably a pro at this part. I can tell you exactly what he'll say. Well, because I always say, like, well, they had the number 1 ranked defense in the country the 2 years after Kirby left. Well, those are Kirby's recruits.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Also, hasn't he won 2 championships without Kirby?
Yeah. He's played for 5 in 7 years. Also 4-1 against Kirby as well. My personal favorite was somebody in the group said, Nick Saban went to Kent State and Michigan State, and no one knew who he was. He hired Kirby when he went to LSU, and that's when he started having success. He's literally never did anything. I swear to God.
That's a troll. That's a troll.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's a
I
troll.
can tell it's not, because the guy who said it was like one of those old people that takes like Facebook profile pictures like this, like where they're like in the front seat of their like truck. Yeah. And like the camera's like under their nose. I think it's incredible to see what Kirby's done. I think he's like, I think I've said this before, even this game, I think he's past Saban as the best coach with the best program and the best team in the country.
The best future.
I think he's distancing himself, to be honest, from what I've seen the past year or two. I really do. Mm-hmm. That being said, like, let's not fucking get out of pocket with like the takes becoming even more
well, it just starts to make everything you say uncredible. Not incredible. Exactly. Non-credible? I don't know.
Incredible.
Not
anyway, but yeah, that was my thought on because it really, I'm not saying that 2019 LSU, and I didn't realize how mad people were going to get over this, because these are just like statistical facts. Georgia's numbers are better.
I can see where people are coming from between the Georgia last year being better than this year, even the statistics say, because doesn't it feel that way?
Not at all. Literally not at all.
Georgia struggled in a few games this year, and I know we kind of said like they played with their food a little bit, but I mean, Mizzou, Kent State, and they didn't struggle, but like that's kind of a weird score against Kent State.
Sure.
Kentucky. There were others. Wasn't Georgia Tech like kind of close at the half?
It was close to the first quarter. Actually, it might have been close at the half. But so you're saying this team didn't struggle last year, right? Clemson was 10-3. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. Florida was like a neck and neck game until the last 2 minutes of the first half, when what's his name gave up like 21 points. Tennessee was somewhat close until the second half. You lost outright to Bama. Kentucky was dominant. I don't remember the Auburn game, to be honest. You beat Vandy 62-0, Arkansas 37-0. I feel like that South Carolina game was like somewhat closer. I mean, I don't remember, but I mean,
yeah, and like I do agree with Brandon here, where he says, those were a result of complacency. I agree, but that's what I think was different about last year's is there was no complacency.
They got their ass kicked. They got their ass kicked on and again, that's the biggest difference. They didn't just lose. They got their fucking ass kicked and won Bryce Young a Heisman. They gave up more points in the second quarter than they had given up in any game that entire year.
They showed up to that game like TCU showed up to this game.
That's not even, no, don't even start. Because this whole, like, we're not going to give credit where credit's due is fucking bullshit. But, like, again, this year, sure, I just, for whatever reason, I would be more okay with, like, oh, they kind of struggled against Mizzou in fucking September. I'm okay. I'm way more okay with that than getting beat by 17 in a game that you could say it didn't matter, but like, damn well, if you have a chance to put your foot on that team's throat, you do it. And then they ended up doing it later in the playoff. Anyway, the numbers are crazy. It's really impressive what they were able to do all season long, man. And again, what they did to the TCU team that was a top 10 offense. Max Duggan, 152 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. You hold them to 28 carries for 36 yards. their best player, Quentin Johnson, 1 catch for 3 yards. One catch for 3 yards.
Well, they knew. I mean, even Kirby said, he was like, our scout team is probably running their
I didn't know he
their
said
plays
that.
better.
Jesus, dude. Yeah, but anyway, it was and the defense, man, they swarmed it. It's again, tip of the cap. It's awesome. It was really awesome to watch, and I just don't think I could say enough about how incredible that team was to watch all season long. I think it is, in my opinion, because I did see them play in person several times, and I did see them play against ranked teams. Like, here's the thing too about LSU. LSU definitely did play like seven ranked opponents. They have a great schedule and I think they beat the entire preseason top 4 or something like that. Close game against Bama, close game against Auburn. You gave up 400 yards rushing to Ole Miss. I don't remember. You beat Florida by 14. It was that was a pretty close game. Still a great team, but I think this team deserves to be in the same breath as the top 5 teams in the history of college football, which is crazy because of the fucking just barrage of white kids they're throwing out there on offense at the skill positions.
Look, I mean, what's crazy to think about it is that you could argue they were outplayed in the game before this, and maybe slightly lucky to win it. Not lucky, but could have easily lost it. Let's say that. And yet, it was probably exactly what they needed going into this TCU game. The absolute mind warping that Saban did to convince everyone that on the team that people were saying they thought they would go 7-5.
Saban didn't say any of that. First off,
quite strange.
I thought that was a joke.
That's a strange weird. There's zero chance that they actually believe that, right? They thought people were saying they would go 7-5.
There's multiple kids saying it into the camera. Y'all said we were going to go 7-5. Y'all said we were going to go 5-7.
This concerns me about the livelihoods of these young men.
What did I tell you in May? They were horny for disrespect, just begging for it.
Yeah. Oh, well, their horniness was taken care of.
Yeah. Well, also, here's
by all the pundits out there that said they would be last in the SEC East.
Who said that?
I'm just saying. I'm concerned for these young men and their livelihoods. The fact that they were convinced.
Santa still, right?
It's kind of cultish, honestly. I think someone needs to do a little bit of research here. A little investigative, journalistic research into what's going on in the apartments and homes of these young men where they believe that everyone in the country was saying they were going 7-5.
I think it's great. It shows that Kirby's a master motivator for this football team. And that's great for while they're football players in college. But you're setting these kids up to be suckered into just countless fucking pyramid schemes, Nigerian prince emails. I mean, dude, if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody.
That's right.
Also, I love that here we go. Dogs were sick versus Ohio State. Here's the thing. The whole thing about the Ohio State game, Ohio State's just the second best team in the country. They're a really good team with really good players. It wasn't because Georgia was sick. It's because they were going up against the other best team in the country. And it's also very difficult to go undefeated. Again, think about how many times, two things. Think about how many times that people have it's the very beginning of the year. The only thing people are hornier for that Georgia's disrespect was Bama losing to Texas. They almost lost to Texas. Texas is terrible. Okay. I mean, it's the game too. I don't know if we know that. They finished ranked. Sure. Absolutely. How many times have we seen the excuses against other teams for barely beating a shitty team? They barely beat this team, right? How many times have we seen Georgia blow it in games they shouldn't have?
Lately?
Not lately.
No.
Lately, they've had since 2020. They've lost 5 games, and 3 of those losses were to national champions or Heisman Trophy winners. I'm sorry, that's since 2019. But again, it's a crazy stat too. This is the first season that Kirby has not had a loss by more than 3 scores since he's been the head coach of Georgia.
Wow.
Every year prior to this, he has. So
mind-numbing stuff. So the final AP poll came out, and Georgia obviously finishes number 1.
yeah.
TCU 2, Michigan 3, Ohio State 4. Personally, I would have put Ohio State above Michigan, but I guess
Dude, did
Michigan
you
did
see
beat
the
Ohio
Reddit,
State. So what's up?
the list of all the votes?
There was some disrespect thrown around there from a few of the coaches.
No, I'm talking about like for the AP poll. 3 people had Michigan at 2,
AP at 2,
including Reese Davis.
I mean, that's weird because TCU just beat Michigan, but I do think Michigan's better than TCU. But anyways, some familiar faces there at the top. Some maybe some old faces that are becoming new again, coming in, creeping towards the top 10. Number 11 there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chris, we've been podcasting together since 2017, and it's been nothing but a nightmare for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not because of you, but because of one fateful night. I think it was dubbed the GOAT, the greatest opener of all time.
Well, that was tough, yeah.
Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, Florida State. Francois tears his ACL. The program never to be the same again.
True.
I am very excited for next year.
You should be.
I don't think we're going to win the championship. We don't have a roster like Georgia's. I don't know that we would get slayed like TCU did, but we wouldn't come close to beating Georgia. But I'm excited. I think we could take the next step and take Clemson down for the ACC next year.
I would agree with that. I think we can get into that part for sure in a second because there's a bunch of stuff I wanted to go over just from like the way too early polls and then also like the odds and stuff like that for next year. One more thing that I thought was super weird, and I mean super fucking weird, and I'm sure that part of this is just because that I like this person and he's my coach, and maybe I'm being biased. The whole David Pollock, Nick Saban breakdown after what was said was like could not have been a bigger non-story.
What? How everyone thought that what Saban or what he said was like out of line or something next to Saban?
No. So like that he was like one that could have been taken that way, and then it was like, did you see Saban's face? And so Saban's like watching him talk, and then he like looks down and blinks and like looks back up. They ran it on a loop the next day on Get Up on ESPN for 2 straight minutes about like the fucking Zapruder film, and it was like, you look at this face, and it was like, I'm sure he was probably triggered at some level because of he's a competitor and he's like been at the top for so long, and I don't think any part of him was like upset that David Pollock made a comment. I don't think David Pollock was trying to say anything that was inappropriate. It was just like, hey, here's a fact. Like Saban sat there on the same panel when LSU won. I thought that was such a weird non-issue where I was kind of surprised more than anything that was like, it seemed like we were the next day. I don't remember watching a national championship where the following day there was less coverage about that team, like on ESPN, mainly ESPN, like on SportsCenter, replays, talking about next season, interviews. I don't think I've ever seen anything with like less coverage than this one. And then for whatever reason, and their fans somewhat did it too, but not as much as ESPN, most of the talk like on ESPN was them like pitted versus Bama. And it was like, can we just fucking enjoy this for 24 hours? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, talking points shifted pretty quickly, like during the game. It was that bad of a game. Obviously, some early odds come out for the 2024 national championship, and they mean what they mean for now, as rosters certainly aren't set in stone for next year. But of course, Georgia, the preseason favorite for now. And again, You can't put a lot of money on these. Plus 300, Bama plus 500, Ohio State plus 750, Michigan plus 900. So you got same 4 teams that were in it this year are the 4 favorites for next year. USC comes in next at plus 1,200, Clemson at plus 1,800, LSU plus 1,800.
Yeah.
Florida State coming in at plus 2,000. They open the season again, playing each other, by the way. That'll likely be a top 10 matchup to start the year. And Notre Dame's up there. Penn State, I'm surprised, is not a little bit higher, although they do have to play Ohio State and Michigan every year. Texas at plus 2,500. Tennessee plus 3,000.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm already going to tell you I'm all over Texas next year.
Already?
They returned 10 starters on offense.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
Also,
I'm not going to be on Clemson. I can tell you that much. Clemson is losing a lot. I'm not going to be on Clemson next year.
Clemson actually returns more than almost anyone in the top 15. This is according to ESPN. I have it all written down. Because I was surprised that they were so low. Clemson was ranked 15th. They returned 16 starters, which is tied for the most besides FSU of anybody, and Texas Tech, of anybody in the entire top 25 for next year.
The Noles. They're coming. You think Arch plays next year?
He'll play, but he's not going to start.
So Quinn.
No.
Any of these teams surprise you? I mean, I think there's still could be some shifting in the portal to happen, but
yeah, it's way too early, I think, still, which is crazy to say. But USC, no, because who they return. Michigan, I don't get. Michigan returns 14 starters. I just think we kind of know what we have with Michigan at this point. I think that's why Harbaugh's like, I might just go because I can't. This is as good as it's going to get. I mean, so it's also hilarious to be looking back on some of this stuff and seeing what people how people voted. This is the final week of the regular season. I'm looking at the votes for the AP poll, and Michigan had 6 first place votes over Georgia. Also, there's a little bit of controversy. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think we posted about it on SDS where Saban, they showed his top 6 or top 5 on his coach's ballot. And he had Georgia, then Bama, and then I think Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, and Tennessee. He had Tennessee at 6. And then Kirby, they put it side by side, and Kirby had Bama at 6 behind Tennessee. So that was pretty fun.
The other thing that we wanted to talk about as far as taking an early look ahead to next year are the preseason Heisman odds.
Yeah.
Obviously, Caleb Williams, this year's winner, is the favorite for next year at plus 400. But Drake May's in there. A lot of the guys that had really good years this year. My boy Jordan Travis is the third best odds. Just going to say that. Brock Vandagriff, plus 1,800.
That's fucking ridiculous.
So clearly the early lines at what is this? Williams? Oh no.
William Hill?
This is on Oddshark. I'm not sure who's actually giving these lines, but thinks that Brock Vandagriff obviously is going to be the guy at Georgia, which would be surprising, I think. Jaden Daniels on this list. Joe Milton on this list. Ty Simpson on this list.
Yeah, so I heard somebody say today they think he'll be the starter over Milroe.
No Bowers on this list.
He is, right?
No Bowers.
That's stupid. Bo Nix there at the Pac-12 is gonna be so much fun to watch next year.
Yeah.
And then Sam Hartman obviously going to Notre Dame. That's probably why they got a little bit of an uptick. The LSU thing, I'm not there.
Yeah, I mean, you get Mason Smith back, who I think is a Jalen Carter level talent at D tackle. Harold Perkins is going to be one of the better linebackers in the nation, you would think. I don't know who they picked up in the portal. I know they've been active. I haven't really studied that, but I'm not thrilled with their playmakers still.
You lose Booty, and then
Malik Neighbors.
You lost Jack Besh.
Yeah. I like the tight end, Mason Taylor.
This is why I'm having a hard time with they got better as the year went on. But again, if I'm being honest, I think that their entire season and them being considered, they were ranked 5th at one point, and they're considered to be a top 5-6 team going into next year. They returned 15 starters, 10 of them on offense. Actually, that can't be right. So it's got to be 9 because they lose Booty and Besh. But their season was made from the Bama win. But when you take a step back and look at like what they did as a whole, you got your ass kicked by Georgia, 50-30, right? You barely beat Arkansas, 13-10. A pretty bad Arkansas team was 6-6. You barely beat Florida, 45-35.
Barely beat Auburn.
You get trounced at home by Tennessee, 40-13, and that game was probably not even that close. You remember the Auburn game where they had to have 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter to win by 4 points against fucking Auburn?
Yeah.
So tell me what I'm missing here. And by the way, when you had everything in front of you, after beating Bama and slipping by Arkansas, you lost by double digits against Texas A&M. Yes. So just tell me why I'm supposed to be like buy into like, oh my God, this entire thing has turned around now.
You make a great point. I haven't thought about that. That makes me excited as a Florida State fan, honestly.
That's fair.
Speaking of that, there a lot of people. Jaden Daniels obviously on the Heisman list. A lot of people like Nussmeier. I think he basically came in 2 opposite ends of blowouts. I mean, they were getting blown out by Georgia, and he came in, and then they were blowing Purdue out. So, like, I don't know if we've seen like a really what Nussmeier could do, but maybe that's some sort of competition next year. But the guy that everyone was excited for, the true freshman Walker Howard, ends up transferring.
Yeah, let's get into that.
So he's in the portal now. He's going to be a hot commodity because when you get a guy like that who is not just a 1-year player, but you're essentially getting a 5-star guy,
right?
That's going to be a freshman. So could you possibly see a school like Florida look at Walker Howard, who is going through all sorts of weird drama with their 2023? He's a signee, Jaden Rashada, I'm talking about. He signed with Florida.
Yeah,
he is in the student directory, but he did not enroll at Florida yet. And On3 reported that he actually asked out of his deal with Florida.
Why?
So the rumor going around Twitter, and we know how true Twitter usually is,
always,
is that, but this one seems to have legs, is that Florida couldn't pay up the money that they said they were going to pay him for NIL.
Shut the fuck up. So I'm looking on 24/7 right now. It says his dad denies disputes report of request out of NLI. Wait, NLI?
NLI. So the NLI is what you signed, the National Letter of Intent.
Oh, yeah.
NIL. Yeah. So apparently Florida promised this kid a certain NIL deal. And when he was supposed to get his upfront share of it before he enrolled, they didn't have the money. And so enough national guys that are in the know have retweeted and made fun of the story that I think it's probably true.
Really? Like who?
Bud Elliott. He started retweeting all these articles about Florida's NIL collective from May that were Florida's really got their stuff together with the NIL. Is Florida State lacking behind? And he was putting that out there. He was making memes about, I don't know. I feel like if it was fake, usually a guy like that won't run with something like that.
That's fair.
But so that'll be interesting to watch. Ultimately,
I mean, he's surprised that class. That's the one positive thing that's happened to that program. And
yeah, they stole him from Miami. It was a big recruiting win. There's something going on down in Gainesville. A lot of Florida fans are getting a little antsy already after year 1 with Napier.
And this is their nightmare. This is I don't think there's ever been a time where Florida State and Georgia have been kicking their ass.
Right. No, probably not. It's probably been a while, if so. And they, it's like Auburn. Auburn just starts cycling through coaches because they're just trying to get to where Bama's at.
Yeah.
That's kind of how Florida feels with Georgia right now.
I thought about this the other day. The Mullen thing is still so it's probably the right move because if you're just talking about trying to compete with Georgia, but Dude came in there, went to 3 straight New Year's Six bowls, went 21-5 his first 2 seasons, had a bunch of top 10 wins, bunch of ranked wins, has a Heisman finalist quarterback, and they were like,
Who no one's ever heard from again.
Who?
Kyle Trask.
Well, he's backing up Tom Brady.
Yeah, I don't think he's. No. Blaine Gabbert came in ahead of him in the Falcons game this past weekend.
I didn't know the Falcons were still playing football.
Unfortunately, they're doing what they do every year, which is they're collecting wins against teams that are resting their starters, so they get worse draft pick. Like no chance to make the playoffs, just make your draft worse.
Right.
Like had a chance for Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, now don't because they just
shout out to the Texans, man. They did the same thing.
That was insane, by the way. Well, it's been a year.
Yeah, man. I want to give a couple of shout outs.
Okay.
Because it was really cool getting to be all the way out in LA and having people like recognize me from the pod and give you a shout out and ask how you're doing. It was really cool. Yeah. So obviously Candler, he snuck us into the suite again, which was awesome. Lillian,
he had a suite at the championship game.
Yeah,
dude, my man is just balling out.
Okay. So I mean, we were like in the down, like in the suite, like in the low level, which is like. I thought I was in a fucking castle because I remember
like the field level suites.
Like no, so the way it was set up is like the 100 level, like the just like seats. Those have access to the suite, which is like you have like a full bar, you have like different food stations, whatever. The like suite, like the premier, at least from like that level, you have to have like a different, like I don't know, ticket or something to like get into, and inside there, everything's free. And they had like charcuterie. They had like fresh fruit everywhere. It was ridiculous.
So all that hating you did on me for sitting in the suite at the Ohio State Georgia game, and now look at you eating charcuterie in the suites.
Tyler, if I was at a football game and you were at the same football game, I would have gotten you into the suite. I would have figured out a way to watch the game with you. So
that's tough.
Anyway, no, so that was cool. And then, like, obviously Lillian, who was nice enough to take me out there, one of our listeners, she's like just as nuts as we are about like watching games. It's tough at times. The MVP of the entire thing, actually, I'll save them for last. The Matt Stout, who reached out to us on Twitter, is a TCU fan that listens to us apparently, which is super nice. And I know I'm leaving people out here. I met the founder of Prize Picks. Got nice about not sponsoring our podcast and sponsoring literally every other one. I was like, you're basically HelloFresh, man, but for gambling.
Yeah, they're based out of Atlanta.
Are they?
Yeah, they're in Buckhead.
Oh, anyway, so that was cool. Shout out University Traditions for giving me this awesome hat to wear. And
shout out Texas Pete.
Frankie and Macy was like the best in Texas Pete. Frankie and Macy, Frankie Alvarez. Anyway, he hit me up on Instagram and said like to come like meet up for a drink before the game, because that was the other thing too, since there's no tailgating and they had like the other tailgate. Like that's why they did that shit, by the way. Like the reason why there's no tailgating, like they had the All-State tailgate like set up next to it. Bro, it was $20 for a 24-ounce beer. And it was only Modelo, which I fucking hate Modelo so much. Those are the most dramatic. I'm dramatic. Those are the most dramatic commercials in the history of television. I hate them. I
can't think of what they're like off the top of my head.
That's the fighting spirit. It's always like some story. It's like she actually, if she would have just accepted her fate and her role in life, she would have never become a 3-time top 10 finisher in the local triathlon. It's like it's never something. It's like, oh wow, it's a famous person. It's like, this guy's a tattoo artist and he's tattooed the stars. Modelo. Okay, man. Anyway, I fucking hate Modelo. Anyway, so when you walked inside there, so we met up and like we're hanging out near like the game day setup or whatever. Could not have been nicer. Like just hit it off super well. was great. Had nothing but kind things to say to you. Was just like us in a lot of ways. Like I think we had a lot of similarities. His wife let me eat her pretzel, and I say that sounds weird.
Yeah, that did sound a little weird.
I just stole her pretzel. That's all that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a blast. That was really fun. It just like made me so happy because we had so many people reach out, and like it's just a reminder that like I really love that we've been able to build like such a personal connection with most of our audience. Even Ben Diesel, who's like a admitted piece of shit. You know what I mean? Just kidding, Ben. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, like that is like my favorite part of this is like, I thought about this too. If we had like the biggest podcast, if we had like PMT listeners, I can't fucking imagine how poorly I would handle that.
Oh,
because the amount of people that would say negative shit just to say negative shit.
Because you'll engage with anybody that says anything negative, but like they are like, a billion times amplified. They probably get so much shit. Yeah, you'd go insane.
And which just brings me to my last point, which is my last shout out is to that guy, Comrade, Comrade, the one who called you out and tagged David Pollock.
David Pollock.
Listen, I know he's listening right now because he apparently follows along, listens to everything, and then just gets so fucking mad about it. This man, hours after the national championship, was sending out tweets threatening to get me banned from Creature Comforts Brewery in Athens because of the hat that I was wearing.
Come on. All right. Well,
anyway, so shout out to him.
Shout out to the haters.
I know you're going to die alone, but you're not going to die tomorrow. So that's something to hang your hat on. You know what I mean?
Things have taken a dark turn. Unbelievable season. I don't know what the schedule is going to look like going forward, obviously, but I do know we're working on a lot of things over the offseason with the corporate suits.
Yeah.
To be honest, these guys are very smart and very helpful. And we're going to be developing some things to get ready for a big 2023 for the podcast. Excited about that for sure.
This is good.
Nice.
Gilly Sadison.
So yeah, man, it's been a great season, dude. I can't believe we made it through. This is our second season now, or was this our third?
This is our second.
Yeah.
Crazy
though.
It is crazy. Also, shout out. I gotta say one thing too that like Lillian brought this up because she's one of the reasons we became friends. She went through the same shit I did. She was engaged and it was broken off, and she was nice enough to bring up the point that since that engagement was broken off, her sports teams have done nothing but succeed and win national titles.
Since your broken engagement?
No, since hers.
Oh, okay.
But she was saying it to me, which felt like a pretty big kick in the dick, because then I realized that is not what's happened for me. Also, I've been bringing this up earlier. This is the most sickening thing I've heard since I almost don't even want to fucking say it because it honestly makes me want to throw up. Stetson Bennett and Georgia have won the same, or Kirby Smart with Stetson Bennett has won the same amount of national championships that Alabama has won with Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, and Mac Jones as their starting quarterbacks combined. I want to
Stetson, man. Big Stet. The mailman.
Anyway, we're getting into the offseason. We'll figure out what the schedule is. I'll definitely still be doing stuff. We got to figure out Tyler's. I mean, we'll probably keep going through the NFL stuff, but this is y'all's time to shine. Y'all let us know what we should be talking about, what deep dives I can get into, what you guys want to hear about, and please don't let it be basketball.
Jeff Rollins makes a good point. UGA wins and goes to the Natty every year. Y'all have a podcast. So tell your friends, guys. The more you guys, you UGA fans, and by the way, we really do appreciate you guys tuning in. By far our biggest fan base that listens to us. Go tell all your friends about our podcast so we continue to grow. We continue to do the podcast. You guys win a championship every single time we do that.
I don't like anything that you're saying right now.
So let's just keep doing that. We're not going to troll Danny Canal because he's our friend.
Yeah, I know. That is like the number one thing that we're going to do next year. And that's my fault that we didn't do it more this year. Is like book actual interviews and shit. Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry. We appreciate it. This has been a great show. Great football season. This football season was awesome.
It's awesome.
I think
what was your
the team.
Like, what was your favorite part?
Honestly, man, like my obviously just for this isn't my uncensored moment of the year, but just the Florida State being able to come back to 10 wins has me very happy.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's been it's been a very depressing situation for the last 6 years. So for a guy to win a championship with you and then just kick you to the curb and like leave your
Christmas tree.
Yeah, and leave your program in shambles, and then to double down and like light that fire and just pour gasoline on it with the Willie Taggart hire.
Yeah,
like Norvell, man, like I'm happy for him, happy for our fan base. Can't wait to see where we go from here. What about you? What was your favorite moment of the year, or favorite situation or story of the year?
I love watching go 0 for 2 in the playoff. That was awesome. I think honestly, my favorite part was halfway through the season getting just, I'll admit it, like super fed up and over it with like it being year 2 and it being year 2 of like the same like lack of follow through on some of the things that we were supposed to be doing. Like not from me and Tyler, but from the people that can control that. And I just will never forget. And it ended up being a great source of motivation. It's great. One of our executives who said there's zero value in what you do, Chris. There's zero value in your role at this company. What you do with social media, what you do with video brings no value to this company. And I was like, cool. And then he said, there's no value in being at actual games and live events. And I laughed out loud because it was very clear that one of us had really, really loved this sport, and the other one probably is good at numbers or something. I don't know. But from that moment on, then I like made like the decision. I was like, we're gonna start going to fucking games. We're gonna like hang out with the fans and do all the stuff that we have wanted to do the whole time, and like kind of where we thrive and like where we like have like the most fun. And I went to 7 straight weeks of games since the Georgia Florida game. I went to a game every single week since then, including Georgia Florida, Georgia Tennessee. I got to see 2 1-3 matchups this year. I saw 3 top 5 matchups. It was pretty cool. Got to see the A&M Yale practice firsthand. Got to go to Auburn, be on the field for that. That was really cool. Got to go to the Iron Bowl. Got to go to the SEC Championship. Got to go to the Peach Bowl, and like went to like probably the best game of the year, and then went to the national championship. And it was just a really, really awesome way to spend the rest of the year. And hanging out with you guys too. It was awesome. It was great.
Yeah. So we appreciate you guys watching, listening, tuning in. It's been a great year. Again, we always go through the off season as well, but it's just not going to be twice a week. We'll figure out a schedule here soon. But anything else, Chris, before we let him go?
That's it, man. Congrats to Georgia and all your fans. Y'all be, I was gonna say safe, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
All right. For Chris and Tyler, thanks for tuning in.